Hi everybody. This is a very short video for my subscribers and not only. In short, I have a second English language channel, which already has one video about the Agafya Lykova. There will be a lot of interesting things, subscribe, link in the description. And everything is fine with Agafya Lykova. Well, of course this is all done only because you wrote me a lot in the comments, that you need a translation of the text. Well, thank you for watching, subscribe to the English language channel, the link is always in the description. See you soon. To get to Zamka, where Agafya Lykova lives, whose family was once made famous throughout the country by the journalist Vasily Peskov, you need to pass a whole transport quest. But TASS correspondents managed to do this, and they brought Agafya not only supplies for the winter, but also a native person, whom she had been waiting for a long time. The snowfall started the day before and lasted all night. The gloomy hills covered with Siberian taiga were covered with fresh snow, and at times the helicopter flew over them so low that you could see the tracks of animals through the snow-covered cedar paws. It is not easy to organize the departure of a large helicopter that can deliver both people and cargo to the taiga. We combined Anton's visit to a relative with throwing her supplies for the winter, and TASS was supported by the governor of the Kemerovo region, Sergei Sivilap. Relatives by correspondence. Agafya Karpovna, the last representative of the family of old believers Lykov, who fled to the taiga when the communists began a particularly severe persecution of the faith. This was still in the late 30s, but they were discovered by Siberian geologists only in 1978. Lykov settled near the river Yernat in Caucasia. He built several residential and commercial buildings. Agafya, who buried her mother, brothers, sister and father here, does not leave her native land. She keeps goats, which are for some reason docile, shares her life with several mongrels, and in a residential hut gives shelter to a whole brood of curious furry kittens. The hermit's everyday life consists of chores, prayers, and writing letters that she sends to visitors. Those who have already returned home, put the sheets, densely written in a neat handwriting, in postal envelopes and send them to the recipients, then to Kuzbas, then to Altai, then to Caucasia. Anton, an employee of the Perm-Tram depot, met his relative just by correspondence. Once, immersed in the study of the history of his family, he realized that both his ancestors and the ancestors of the famous taiga hermit come from the same village, Lykova, in the Tyumen region. The old believers who settled in the mountains of western Siberia left there before the revolution. They still have tiny isolated settlements here today, the inhabitants of which do not even have passports. In Lykov itself, according to Anton, almost no one remembers the old faith anymore. Realizing that he was related by blood to the taiga hermit, Anton wrote her a letter almost 2 years ago, gave it to an old believer priest, who made sure that the letter was delivered to Agafya with another expedition, and suddenly received an answer. I remember my mother saying to me, "You have a letter." I also thought, who could write to me? The letter was from Altai. On the envelope my name is Anton Lykov, and inside her handwritten letter, Anton recalls. Why not live there? Shuria, known in Russia for its ski resorts, is historically a land of harsh taiga, hunters and fishermen. The climate here is more difficult than in the lowlands of Kuzbas. Winter comes early even by Siberian standards. You arrived, and today the snow began to fall. It covers roads and passes in the snow, says Vladimir Makuta, who has been heading the Tashatogol district for 22 years. Well, nothing, the equipment is ready, we will cope. This is Shuria, it's special. Shurs here are called not only representatives of the indigenous people, but also just local residents, and it does not depend on their nationality at all. Especially respected ones are called real shurs. There are many representatives of the Lykov family among the real shurs. In the old believers village of Kilinsk there are only 60 yards, along the road there are high poles, so that in winter you can see where the road is under the snow. There is no mobile phone service in the village, and the sullen, bearded local men live mainly by hunting, collecting pine cones and running their own farms. Agafya's niece Alexandra Martysheva, a mother of 8 children, grandmother of 24 grandchildren and a successful local entrepreneur lives here. Her family produces oil from pine nuts. It was at Martysheva more than 20 years ago, after the death of Tyoti, Karpasipovich Lykov, that Agafya herself lived for some time during one of the few periods when she agreed to temporarily leave Zamka. I remember she was very impressed with small children. She was always touched by what a little man he was, she said, and she had never seen such a thing. She is the youngest in the family, was born in the Taiga. Where did she see children there? Recalls Martysheva. My daughter, Marina, is very fond of her. She even asked me to give it to her to take Marina to Zamka. I didn't give it away, of course. According to Martysheva, Agafya was persuaded to stay in Kilinsk. Residents of the village promised to build a house for her, but Lykova initially came just to stay. Referring to the fact that the local water does not suit her, Agafya soon returned to the Taiga. A few years ago, the Kuzbas relatives still urged her to go closer to civilization. Now, knowing the difficult nature of the hermit, they stopped trying to persuade her. They are only interested in how she lives and pass gifts. Relatives, as Anton's example shows, can come themselves. She was born there, lived there all her life. Everything that is important to her is there. Her father-in-law and relatives are buried, explains Martysheva. Help her now, so why not live there? Relatives and helpers. Together with Anton, a whole delegation is flying to Agafya. For the winter, the woman is delivered by helicopter flour, cereals, potatoes, vegetables and fruits, animal feed, live chickens and new windows, which were instructed to insert the governor Sergei Sivilov. Alexei Utkin, an Altaic cold believer who met the Taiga hermits many years ago as a geologist, flies to help her with her household tasks in winter. Utkin found almost the entire Lykov family alive and repeatedly wintered on Zamka. Now he is going to live in the Taiga at least until spring. This time, he plans to restore the bathhouse, which was destroyed in the spring when the river flooded. By the new year, I have to manage. And then, if possible, I will fly to the Altai on business, manage, turn around and go to Agafya on foot. It's not far to go, it's only 10 days, Alexei smiles. Utkin, with whom the hermit finds a common language, she is very much waiting. 74-year-old Lykova needs not only help around the house, but also just a company, an interlocutor. However, not everyone gets along with it. So, with the previous assistant, George, Agafya did not find agreement on matters of faith. I got mad at him, said, "Go away, I don't want to see you again." I did not bless him, Lykova states peremptorily. But she is very happy to see her newfound relative. As soon as he explains that this is the same Anton who wrote her letters, Agafya, short and smiling, who came out to meet the helicopter in an old coat and a warm maroon handkerchief, hugs him tightly and starts talking about the old Lykov family. The hermit knows its history better than any researcher. She generally has a sharp mind and an excellent memory. More than a dozen who arrived by helicopter. Lykova remembers everyone who has ever met before. This, says Utkin, who knows her well, has always been the case. It is enough to get acquainted with Agafya, and she will always remember who he is and where he came from. With all the variety of officials, journalists and pilgrims who arrive several times a year, Lykova manages not to get confused in them. Crosses and people. Anton brought a relative gifts, 3 meters of fabric, a warm handkerchief. But Agafya is especially happy with the church candles. She has lanterns, a gasoline generator, and you can turn on an electric lamp, but candles are not simple and have a sacred meaning for her. In the hut, among the shelves filled with clothes and various utensils, a separate, clean and well-groomed corner is reserved for icons and sacred books. Agafya puts the iron-bound gospel on the shelf with the cover facing forward, and carefully covers the end of the book with a clean cloth so that dust does not accumulate on it. Lykova is stingy with movements and emotions. She does not walk slowly like an old man, but sedately, as she is used to. Does not raise his voice, does not resent anything and does not laugh loudly, only smiles a childish, naive and in a special light smile. While the windows are being put in the hut, Agafya shows Anton her farm, tells him about icons, leaves the holy books with him, and leads him to the grave of Karpasipovich. The father of a Taiga family is buried not far from the house, under a simple wooden cross blackened by time. The same 8-pointed Orthodox cross Lykova noticed recently, when the water left, on a large stone at the bottom of a small and clean river at a few dozen meters from Zamka. The dark grey stone does show white veins in the shape of a cross, and no one will remember seeing it here before. Agafya, when asked whether she considers it a miracle, a sign of the Lord, an accidental caprice of nature, or something else, just smiles and turns the conversation to another topic. Here, my bear has become quite impudent today. After Pokrov, he came straight to the house. And now the snow has already fallen. This is how her life goes, waiting for the bear after the cover and meeting the early winter, growing potatoes and making hay for the goats, hauling water from the river, spinning wool, working on the loom and doing many other necessary things away from human society, alone. But not everyone is ready for this. This is not just a physically strong, healthy person, we have a lot of them, says Vladimir Makuta, who has visited Agafya many times and seen many of her assistants. It's one thing to spend a day or a week there. But just to live there it must be a strong person of faith. But this is not enough for everyone. Anton spent only a few hours with Agafya, but when he returns, he thinks about going there for a long time. Not so much for the test of faith as to find a spiritual guide in the person of the hermit. How do we know it's not the last flight of the challenges in the life of Anton? We will give him the pilot so he contacts if anything happens. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss new videos. See you soon.